How's it going everyone? It's Kenneth here, and today I'm going to be speaking about pruning tomato plants. There are two varieties of tomatoes. One is called Determinate and the other one is called Indeterminate. I've got a mixture of both kinds. Most of them are Indeterminate, and those are also known as vining tomatoes, so they grow quite tall and need quite a lot of support as they get bigger, as you can imagine. I've got one type of Determinate tomato, and that's a bush variety, so it gets it doesn't get as big. They get about 4 foot tall, maybe about a meter tall, and they kind of bush out rather than grow up. Another difference is how they produce fruit or tomatoes. So Determinate tomatoes will flower all at the same time, produce fruit at the same time, all the fruit will ripen and then the plant dies. Whereas Indeterminate tomatoes will keep growing fruit throughout the season. So as the tomatoes flower and produce tomatoes, they'll ripen and more flowers will keep coming, and they will basically only die once the first frost hits and they can't cope in the cold weather anymore. So the thing with Indeterminate tomatoes is, obviously the bigger they get, they need support, but if they've got too many sort of branches growing off them, they get really heavy. So there's something called suckering, which is the process by where you remove parts of the tomato plants called suckers, and I'll show you what those are now.
What you doing, sucker?
It isn't 100% necessary, but the reason why people do it so much is because the suckers need energy to grow. So you're taking energy away from the plant producing tomatoes and into producing these suckers or extra branches. The other reason is the plant obviously gets really heavy the more suckers that it has. So by removing them, it makes the plant slightly lighter and easier to manage. So today I'll show you what the suckers are, how you remove them, and basically how you prune the tomato plants. All of these tomatoes that I have growing along the side of the polytunnel are the Indeterminate variety, as well as this one over here. Now they don't do as well in pots, but you could see it's already starting to produce some flowers, so it just won't get as big as these ones will. You can see they've grown quite a lot in the last couple of weeks, probably a good 4 or 5 inches, but they're getting really kind of bushy, and it's going to be a good idea to start staking these, getting some support on them and removing all the suckers. So okay, so on this particular plant over here, I haven't actually pruned it properly, and I've taken some of the suckers off already. So a sucker is a branch that grows between the main stem, which is this one, and a branch that comes off the side. So you can identify the suckers by any branch that grows in between those two, so the main stem and the branch coming off the side. So that's a sucker over here. It's getting quite long. It's actually already got some little signs of flowering at the top, but I'm still actually going to remove that one. I've removed some of the smaller ones already. You can see there was a tiny little one over there, and over here, and they actually do keep coming back, so it's a good idea to keep visiting them every couple of weeks and cutting them off. Now at the bottom here, there's loads of little offshoots as well, and this one here has gotten really big. There's a few smaller ones down here. I'm actually going to remove those as well for the exact same reason, is there's a lot of energy going into producing them and keeping them going, and I would rather want this tomato to get bigger and create more fruit rather than put energy into all these small little side branches. So basically, once you find the sucker, just be careful not to cut anything else or nip anything else, and just gently cut it off. Now you can just use your hands if you like, but I'm using scissors just to be, sort of a bit more careful. Okay, so I've done the first tomato plant in the pot, and we got rid of quite a lot, and it might seem counterproductive, but this plant will start growing slightly bigger, and it'll put more energy into producing fruit rather than sustaining all of these branches that aren't really doing much. Okay, so I'm going to start on this one here in the corner, and I'll point out all the suckers for you. So if we go in here, that's the main branch over there. Here's a little side branch, and there's that one just in the corner. It's almost growing almost like at a 45-degree angle out of the two, and that's how you identify them. Here's another one down there, main branch, side branch, and sucker. So I'll get rid of all of those, and I'll show you the difference between how that looks now and what it's like afterwards. You know, pruning these tomato plants is going to do, or you know, you can call it suckering. What you're doing then is actually creating more light or more space for air to flow through, which will stop sort of fungal infection starting on the leaves, but also more light to get to the rest of the plant. You know, as these get bigger, there's going to be more and more branches coming off, and if you don't sucker them or prune them, you know, no light's going to get to the bottom. So, or no air will be able to flow through it too. So it's, you know, it looks savage and it looks really different to what they are now, but you're actually doing your tomato plants a favor, and you're going to end up having a lot more yield from them, which is obviously a good thing for you. Okay, so that's it. I've pruned all of them, and you can already see how much more space there is and how much more light there is towards the base of the plant. That's everything I cut away there, with a few bits of weeds that I found in between them. If you have tomato plants, it's best to find out if they are determinate or indeterminate varieties before you start hacking them to pieces. The reason is because determinate varieties also have suckers, but you don't want to remove those. Okay, so that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and you could get some value from this. It's one of those things you're going to have to keep on top of with tomatoes, especially the indeterminate kind. As the season goes on, as they get bigger, you just need to keep an eye on them and keep pruning them when those little suckers show up. And if you haven't subscribed yet and you want to carry on watching videos like this, hit the subscribe button now. I will see you guys next time. See you later.
Hey sucker, you better watch who you're pushing.